click on this PC and click on Manage option. Now click on Disk Management under the Storage option. Windows Disk Manager is a tool where all the drives connected to your computer are shown. The Disk 0 is my primary SSD in which my Windows 10 is installed. I'm going to shrink a free space for Kali Linux from this SSD. I'm going to use my Windows C partition drive to shrink 50 GB of free space for Kali Linux. You can shrink any size of space, according to your use. Right-click on the partition and choose Shrink Volume for Kali Linux. You need at least 25 GB space or higher to install Kali Linux. You have to give shrink size in MB. In this case, I'm going to allocate 50 GB of free space for Kali Linux. As you can see, free space is showing as unallocated. We will be installing Kali Linux in this unallocated space. This way, we will have different partition to install Kali. And our Windows 10 is also safe. Step number 4. Install Kali. Reboot your computer. Now go ahead and reboot your computer. While rebooting your PC, press F10 on your keyboard to open up the boot menu. You should see your bootable pen drive listed in your boot menu. Select your pen drive and click OK to boot from it. SanDisk is my bootable pen drive. I will select and boot from it. Common keys for accessing the boot menu are Escape, F2, F10, or F12, depending on the manufacturer of the computer or motherboard. Now Kali Linux installation is started. Choose the graphical install option. You will need an external mouse to navigate, or you have to use your tab key to navigate while installing. Now here choose the language. In my case I will choose English as my default system language. Next up choose your location and keyboard layout. Now the installer setup will start loading all of the components. Wait for a few seconds. If in case you see any prompt like missing firmware from removable media, choose no and continue. Now you need to configure the network. If your PC has a Wi-Fi card, it will show active Wi-Fi connections. You can connect to your Wi-Fi network and continue. This step is optional. You can also continue without connecting the Wi-Fi network. Here you can type the host name for your Kali Linux. Host name and domain name is optional, so I will leave them empty. Now, you need to create a new user account on Kali Linux. Here, type your name and continue. Also set the password for the user account and click on Continue. You must remember this username and password to log in into Kali Linux after installation. It's time to create partitions for Kali Linux. Since we have already created free space for Kali Linux, we will be creating partitions manually. Choose this manual option over here and continue. It will list all drives connected to the PC or laptop. My PC has one SSD and one hard drive. I have created free space in my SSD. You can see all Windows related partitions along with the free space that we have created in step number 3 are shown here. We're going to use this free space to create 2 partitions. One is going to be a root partition of Kali Linux and other will be a swap area. You can also use a separate partition for home, if you need it so. For now, I will stick with 2 partitions only. First, I'm going to create a root partition where Kali Linux will be installed. Select the free space and click on Continue. Click on Create a new partition. And allocate 50 gigabits or more for the root partition. The file system for this partition will be export journaled. And the mounting point should be as /root. Now go to Done Setting Up Partition and continue. As you can see, we have successfully done creating a root partition. And now it's time to create a swap area. Swap area acts as virtual RAM if your system has less amount of physical memory. For those who are having more than 16 gigs of RAM, swap area is not needed. Now to create a swap partition, choose the remaining amount of free space and continue. Here instead of X4 we're going to use it as a swap area and continue. That's it, now we have successfully done creating 2 partitions for Kali. Now go ahead, click Finish Partitioning to write changes to the disk. As you can see, these 2 new partitions will be created. Now the installer setup will start installing the basic system files. Now once it is done you will be presented with this menu where you have to choose your favorite desktop environment. In my case, I'm going with default XFCE desktop environment. Now select what tools you want to install on your Kali and click on Continue. I will continue without changing anything. Click Continue to move further. Sit back and relax, the installation process will take some time. Once you see the installation finished screen, go ahead and restart your computer. While your computer is restarting, take out your pen drive. Now by default, your PC will boot into Kali Linux Scrub Bootloader, where you can either select to boot into Windows 10 or Kali Linux. For now, let's boot into Kali Linux. Now log into Kali Linux using username and password you set earlier in this video. This is how you can dual boot Kali Linux with Windows 10 without losing any data.